Okay, I've made some improvements to my game recently, and so I thought I'd make a video to chronicle those improvements and share it with anyone who's interested. Um, and you know, these improvements indicate, I think, which is one of the most important things for me about uh, playing poker and being profitable at playing poker. And I will circle back to that. But the first thing I want to say is I'm not a professional, and I do not um, claim to know what I'm doing. And I think that's really important. Um, I do make money at poker, but I do it for fun. And as a result, my bankroll management is a little different than it would be if I were a professional. What I do is I always start at $200 with a bankroll of $200, and I start at 10 NL, 10 cent, 5 cent, and then I work my way up. Um, and I think you can see on the screen here where I've worked my way up now to $1,946. And the way I do that is by uh, generally, I'd like to have 20 big blinds of whatever stake I'm playing. Not 20 big blinds, 20 buy-ins of whatever stake I'm playing. So um, right now I'm playing 50 NL. And if I get another buy-in, I'll be close enough to start playing 100 NL. I'll have almost $2,000. And I play all the way up to 200 NL. And then at some point, um, when it's right, it's a timing thing that could be like maybe our bank account needs a little cash. Maybe there's an investment opportunity or something else I want to take advantage of. Or maybe I just feel it's time to start over again. I'll move that cash into our personal finances. It's never a lot of money, but yeah, so that's the way I play. I'm not playing to get rich playing poker, and that helps me actually play better. There's very little anxiety. I have very little anxiety about playing poker. The other, um, which I alluded to, the other quality which I alluded to is humility. I'm always studying and always learning. I watched a Pete Clark video just a couple days ago that just blew my mind, really changed my game just a couple days ago. And I've been making money for a long time playing online poker. But he talked about what he called hot spots, these spots where you normally wouldn't play a hand, but if you take into account your post-flop edge and the quality of the play at the table and your position's important, I think, in these spots, you play the hand, even though it's not a GTO approved hand. And I was being a little lazy as far as pre-flop play was concerned. I like to stay out of trouble. Patience is another quality I think that's really important. And patience for me meant sticking pretty close to GTO ranges pre-flop, and I was convinced, and I put that strategy into effect this morning, and playing 50 NL this morning, just this morning, and just that little change, and of course luck is involved. I got some great situations, but luck is always involved. And you can't be afraid if you try something new and it doesn't work, because it just doesn't work. That happens all the time. That doesn't mean it's not a good idea. But this morning I made 3 buy-ins at 50 NL just by playing hands I wouldn't previously have normally played, but because of position and my perceived edge post-flop and the weakness of the other players at the table, I knew I could get in there and either bluff and take down a big pot, or, if I got lucky, get all the money in and take down a big pot. So yeah. So what do we have? We have patience, humility, and that's easy for me because I really don't know anything, and I am always studying and learning new things. And yeah, I think another one is just being able to fold when you know you're not good, and that's hand reading. Hand reading is super important, and it's not for me. I mean, I can do it. I can hand read really well and sort of narrow the range down and kind of know not the exact combo that someone has, but often, pretty close. But that's really not what hand reading is about for me. Hand reading is more about knowing that villain wouldn't play that way unless he had the goods. So it's time to fold, no matter how good your hand is. And that involves knowing the villain too, because you got to know population statistics. You got to know what's an underbluffed spot and an overbluffed spot. You got to know what's an underfolded spot and a overfolded spot. Those are key. And then you take that general knowledge and you focus on the individual player you're up against, and make your best guess about whether that's a person who's going to overfold in an overfolded spot or is going to underbluff in an underbluff spot. And that's what I think of when I think of hand reading. Even though I understand, putting someone on a range and et cetera, et cetera. But the problem with that, especially 200 L and below, is that many of these players don't know what range to play. They don't know they don't know that they shouldn't be calling a gut shot on the turn against a big raise. But you see, they have a gut shot. They know they can make it straight, and so they hang on. So that happened to me. Actually, I made a bad read a few days ago, where a guy played a hand from pre-flop to the river that he should have folded at every street, but he didn't. And I should have known when he went all in on the river that that's what he had done. But I made a mistake. I said I was sure that he couldn't have. There's no way he could have that hand based on all the action up to that point. And I had a good hand, and I called, and he turned over, I forget what it was, let's say ace 3 offsuit, and it was just like, what? But that happens, and that's good. That's a good thing, because if he hadn't made his straight on the river, or actually, no, it was, actually he had trips. That's right. That's what happened. He made trips on the river. If he hadn't made trips on the river, I would have made a big hand. So, yeah, and you're going to lose. That's the other thing. You just can't. And everything I say is really, when I say you, I mean me. I just can't worry about it. Patience. It's going to be okay. I did a big misclick this morning. I'm old. I'm almost 70 years old, and I had a hand on the big blind that was on the flop. I had a weak backdoor flush draw and a weak backdoor straight draw, and so in my mind I was thinking, I could raise this, right? I could raise this against the button if he goes small on the flop. If he's doing an auto bet, especially on the flop, if he's betting his range on the flop. And he didn't bet small. He bet less than pot, but not much less than pot. And both my backdoor draws were pretty weak, and the board was volatile enough that I just, I decided to give up. I decided to fold. But then somehow my unconscious brain thought that the all in button was the fold button. And I just, I, I looked at, I looked at the board on the turn and I was like, how did all my money get in the pot? And I lost, but that's okay, right? I made it back. And if you're good and you're patient, you're gonna you're gonna lose some big pots, but you're gonna over time make it back. And that's my experience. That's just my experience. It's never get too worked up about one hand. Um, I don't play a lot. I play probably 60 to 75,000 hands a year. It's a hobby and it's fun for me. I like studying it. I like playing it and thinking about it. And that gives me a lot of freedom to not care too much. And I think that's really important. When I get uptight about the money, if I'm worried about the money, and this is why bankroll management is so important, I don't play as well. So it's good to be laid back, patient, um, and humble, and just enjoy the game and take your time. Think about what you're doing. That's the other thing that I really like Pete Clark as a teacher, and I totally recommend his courses and his videos. He was one of the first videos I ever watched was from the ground up. And run it once. And that really started me out on the right foot in a lot of ways, I think. But one thing he stresses, and it's true, what's the point of poker? The point is to make the most chips, right? And so that's the way I should think in any given hand in that situation. And like I said, I know ranges, I know GTO, I know all that stuff, but that's not the point. The point is not to know all that stuff. The point is in that hand to know what the highest EV decision is. How can I make the most money, get in this particular situation? What do I have to do? Who's my opponent? Et cetera, et cetera. All that stuff. Is this overfolded, underfolded? All that stuff I said before. So that takes a little time. Can't just be clicking buttons. Gotta think about it. And just taking that moment to think about it just a little bit. Sometimes, there's plays where I've just made what I'll call in quotes genius plays, that are just taking a little time to think about it and realizing, oh, right, this guy's only got 30 big blinds behind. He's aggressive. He's going to keep betting. If I don't bet here, I don't have to get all the money in now. It'll get in. Something like that. There's a million, poker's so complex. There's a million. That's why it's so much fun. There's all these opportunities to analyze the situation and come up with a decision. And even if it turns out to be the wrong decision, I think there's a satisfaction in just taking the time to think about it and make a decision based on what I perceive to be the best EV decision at that point. If I do that, and I'm patient and humble and persistent, and I'm not sweating the losses, and because you're going to lose poker. There's variance, and it happens to all of us. I had a terrible downswing last year, or this year. No, last year. It was last year in the fall, and things have been going pretty well this year. And what do? You just, what I do is I just keep moving down in stakes. I just don't sweat it. I'm I know that I can build it back if I don't freak out, if I don't try and chase my losses, if I just accept it as part of the game and a hobby that I enjoy, I'm gonna make that money back. So that's enough chatter. So we're playing 50 NL, and I'm gonna try and articulate my thinking process, not necessarily educational, for anyone else but me, but I find it really helpful to articulate my thinking process. So let's go. Let's open a table here. See if my hand to note is working. I use hand to note. I love hand to note, but it's very glitchy for me. If anyone else finds that to be the case, let me know. Because it certainly is for me. Are we max? Let's do max. Okay. Take my seat. Wait for the big blind. All right. Yeah. Okay, queen 9 in the big blind, pretty good hand. Depends where the action comes from. It's a really good bluffing hand generally. That's kind of a big opening raise for queen 9. I don't know enough at this point to know whether this is a player who raises big when they have the goods, or just raises big because they're on the button and they want to take it down. I don't know the answer to that. And queen 9 is not good enough if he has the goods, so I'm just going to fold. That's a tight fold. You can disagree with it, but until I have more information, I don't want to play for 5 big blinds out of position with an offsuit. Barely connected, barely high card hand. Okay. Again, a similar situation. This is an early position raise. Guy's slightly under 100 big blinds. Means could be a weak player, just could also mean 1.5 big blinds he just wasn't able to. Ignition can be weird as far as filling up your stack. So king queen offsuit out of position. I could raise here. I think Pete would want me to raise here, but I don't think so. I think we'll just wait. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Problem with a hand like king queen offsuit out of position like that is it's hard to play against an early position raise, because it really is in the bottom of, if he knows his ranges, it's really in the bottom of his range. So that's an easy fold. Jack 8 offsuit could be an open from the button, especially under the new regime, but not going to call or raise. Okay, here's a good hand on the cutoff. Again, now normally I might call this hand, but I'm gonna go ahead and raise it. It's certainly good enough to play in position. Hopefully I'll buy position by raising here. See what happens. This is the same guy who raised 5 on the button, so he might just like big raises. Okay, so he just called, so that's really good. Chances are he doesn't have a great hand. This is not a bad flop for my range, actually, because I have a lot of overcards, overpairs. Yeah, so I'm actually going to go ahead and do a small bet here. I would think he doesn't have, early position raise, called, yep, take it down. I think that's, you could look at that and say, oh, that's not a good flop for my range. But I actually think it is, for the reasons I said, thinking about his range and his actions. Okay, this is borderline because it's in the hijack. I'm going to fold though. Easier to play in position than out of position. Yeah. Yeah, that would see. There's like if we were in this hand, that's a interesting flop for this hand. Um, Depending on the action, if you know, he should bet the. Well, let's see. Yeah, that's right. He raised. He open raised. So he should bet big there. That's a great flop for his hand. That's not. It's not an. Obviously, it's not an auto bet. But if he had junk, he should raise big there. You're very polarized, I guess is what I'm saying. If he had something really good, he should raise big there. So maybe he just has a mediocre hand. Maybe he has like king something. No, he had a queen, mediocre. Yeah, yeah, good. I agree. I agree with that play. Check, check, call. Yeah, nicely played. Okay, this is a trash hand. Got a small bet. I don't even think this is good enough to play. Anyway, not good enough to raise either. Again, see what happens here. Definitely good enough to play from the small blind. I like going in for a raise, always putting pressure on the opponent. Yep. Especially, it's a little early still to talk about image, but you know, if I've won a couple hands, so my image is not the worst. So coming in with a raise has a little more threat in it, I think. So, yeah, that's good. I don't like playing those really small pocket pairs. I mean, that could be, again, I'm still integrating this new found strategy. I could, use my post flop edge there and open that. I did that this morning with a hand, a weak hand, very weak hand, and flop nothing, but just understood the situation, just kept the pressure on, and villain folded on the river to an overbet, and I had nothing, right? But it made sense that do I want to raise here? I don't think so. This should hit the big blinds range pretty well. If he has anything, I have a better chance of making money. Now I have a gut shot to go with my flush draw, nut flush draw. Again, same thing. I mean, there is the problem that I could, this might be a really good raise actually. Again, don't be afraid to lose money. That's a scary board, and I have a couple of really good draws. Right, there you go. All right, and I probably would not have won that without that bet. Right, put villain in a tough spot. I know Pete hates that tough spot, but I do think there are times when it's higher EV to raise than to call, because if I just call and my draw doesn't hit, then I'm in a tough spot. Yeah, so yeah, it's a good time of year to be playing poker between Christmas and New Year's. A lot of tourists, just great. Yeah, see, like, hand to note isn't working. Weird. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This is borderline, obviously. Potentially weaker player, a little bit under Ace 10 offsuit. Again, at the bottom of his range, if he knows his range is out of position, yeah, I'm going to fold. I know. Go ahead. Yell at me in the comments. But, I make money. I just think hard to make money out of position with one high card offsuit slightly connected hand. If an ace comes, he's got all the better aces, right? So, yeah. Same here. Not going to play this hand from the small blind, given a early position raise. From the small blind, I use Elvin Yau's Elvin Teaches Poker Overnight Monster. Great content, really good content. Overnight Monster is such a good course. In the Bluff Barbarian, same thing. Really, really thoughtful and exploitative, but grounded in understanding of ranges and theory, and really good. And his, he can't be married to any rule of thumb, but sometimes they're helpful. And one of his tips on playing the small blind, if there's action ahead, is, don't play any hand from the small blind whose low card is lower than a 9. So, yeah, if you have like 10-9 suited, great. 10-8 suited, not so great. Or 9-8 suited, not so great. So, yeah, that's, yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of, I don't know, it's my perception. I'm not talking about the super weak players. I'm not talking about the fish or whatever, the minnows, the whales, the aquatic creatures. I'm not talking about the aquatic creatures, but the sort of weaker regs. I think a big leak, and this is just speculation. Again, tell me in the comments if you agree. I think the weaker regs, a big leak often is playing those high card offsuit hands in situations where it's not great, like against an early position open, or if you get, let's say you open Queen Jack offsuit on the button, and then the small blind raises, and for me that's almost an automatic fold. Patience, right? You gotta fold. It's it's okay. And I'm not a nit. My stats are, and usually end up being kind of correct. Just somehow they're usually, for 6 max, I'm usually 21, 22 VPIP with like 17, 18 raise first in kind of, So the opportunities will come. They won't all come on the same day. So sometimes we've all been there, had sessions where, just folding every hand. I think my record, I usually play about 50 hands at a time. It's hard when hand to note isn't working to know exactly when that is. But, I think 48 folds in a row from beginning to end is my record. Where I just never had an opportunity to really get in there. And also, another thing I like about Elvin Yau is like this idea that poker is a little bit like boxing, where you kind of throw some jabs, right? You throw some jabs, and maybe they connect, maybe they don't, right? But you got to be ready to. This could be a call or a raise. Like I said, I'm in a raising mood, so I'm going to raise. This guy has to make a decision now. This is Mr. Big. Yeah, Mr. Big Bet. And remember, he bet 5 big blinds before, so that might be a tell. If he bets big, maybe he has a better hand, which against weak opposition is okay. I'm not judging. If he thinks I might be a fish, in the big blind, and he decides he's going to raise 5 against a fish, right? Because, maybe I'm a station, and he's got whatever, aces. Yeah, absolutely. Good strategy. In the right circumstance, right? There's nothing is written in stone, right? It's all about paying attention and playing position. Now, this is a good example, right? I'm going to go for it here. A hand I would never have previously played, but here I am in position with a post-flop edge and take down a little pot. Why not, right? Why not? Like I said, nothing's written in stone. There's a great legendary studio musician, bass player, Leland Sklar. It's just fabulous, like one of the best. I heard him interviewed talking about his process for walking into a studio recording. And he had one of my favorite quotes of all time, which is, everything I do is etched in mud. Meaning, he's always willing to change gears. He's always willing to say, oh, maybe that's not right. Maybe we should do something else. And I think that can be applied to poker. Everything I do is etched in mud. I don't have to stick to someone else's idea of good play, right? I'm responsible for my winnings and losses. I can do what I think is right in a given situation, even if the GTO nerds vilify me. I've been on the planet a long time. I've had a lot of success in a lot of different areas. It's okay to trust yourself and trust your thinking process, right? That's the key, right? Don't be arrogant, right? It's not about thinking you know what's right, but it's about, like I said, taking the time to think in any given situation. This is an interesting one. I think this is a good, I know it's a good hand for betting. Go there. Yeah, better than calling. Let's see what this guy does here. And I might have to give it up. No, he just, that's not a beautiful thing. Now, this is, you can bet here or not. I'm going to check just out of position. I think if he, yeah, now I think we need to put some money in, see what he does. Well, yeah, got lucky there. Made a nice little pot with that. Not being afraid to 4-bet there, out of position. I tend to 4-bet obviously more out of position than in position. Sometimes, that's the key ingredient in some ways for me. It's, obviously certain hands are better for 4-betting than others. King, queen suited, fabulous hand four betting. King Jack suited, fabulous hand for four betting. You know, unblocks those three bet bluff hands like ace five, ace four suited, and blocks ace king, blocks kings, blocks queens. Really good four betting hand. Okay, I think this, obviously we're gonna play this. You know, one could call there, but then you don't know what's going to happen behind. You know, again, it's good to clear out players from the hand. What do we do? I think that really denigrates our ace. Cold four bet, and that's strong, right? Really strong. I think we just got to take our medicine here. I could call and play this hand in position, right? But cold four bet, it's got to be, I know these guys. It's got to be aces or kings generally, right? Usually aces. So, yeah, it's okay. Be patient. Be humble. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. I'm sure that's a call in GTO. It could even be a 5-bet jam in GTO. The problem is this guy doesn't have enough bluffs. We know that from statistics. Cold 4-bet. How many years have I been playing? Not that many. Like 5.5 years I've been playing poker now. I started after I got sick. But I think in those 5.5 years, when the cards are turned over on a cold 4-bet, I have never seen anything except aces or kings. Maybe ace king sometimes. Maybe. Could be ace king. But generally, it's aces or kings. It's just, your average reg just doesn't 4-bet enough, right? And a cold 4-bet especially. I'd just be shocked if it were anything else. You don't want to overreact to just, it's not personal. That person just got a really good hand when you had a really good hand. And when there's two really good hands, the person who has the slightly less really good hand is going to lose a lot of money. So, yeah, I'll stand by it. I'll stand by that fold based on experience, really. There's nothing, I have no theoretical justification for it. And I also know that, again, what's up with this guy? 6.5. Is that, is that a guy who is he over aggressive? Is that what happened on the last hand? Did I make a bad fold on the last hand? Or has he just got two good hands in a row? King Jack, it's a tough one, man. I would love to call and play, but again, I'm just going to be patient. It's okay to make a mistake and lose a little. Better than making a mistake and losing a lot. 6.5. Weird. And now he raises 2. Queen six a hand I love to 3-bet against a button small open raise, but you know, not playing against 8 big blinds on a 3-bet. Yeah, and the fact that seat number 3 folded means I think that means he got 2 really good hands in a row, and yeah, played a cold 4-bet and then a big open raise on his really good hands. Okay, here's getting nice hands here. This is actually a nice little run here. I don't know if it's true, if it's just a matter of euphoric recall or what, but I feel like feel as though the often when I make a tight fold, like in that last situation against the 6.5 open raise, often seems like if not the next hand, but the hand after that, you get in a really good position. Like I said, that's probably just hooey. That's probably just superstition. But yeah, it happens though. It does happen occasionally. You got some chips to play with too. You get in a good position, which is nice. Save those chips for the right opportunity. Yeah. Don't want to play like a nit though, because you don't want to scare anyone when you come into a hand, if possible. You want to let them know that you're playing aggressively as a matter of course, if possible. Yeah. Sometimes you can't help it though. That's the other thing. Like, I mean, I know I can't see the HUD because Hand to Note is being a brat. I need to contact them and find out what's going on. But yeah, it's expensive. I have the pro version. You know, I like doing the population analysis, and so I just upgraded, and it's been since I upgraded. It's just not working consistently. Works sometimes, which is nice, but it's not consistently. Again, if anyone else has this problem with the latest update, let me know. I mean, I just paid for my new subscription, so I'd like it to work. But, you know, for a guy with terminal cancer, I have weirdly a kind of a busy schedule, and I do a lot of different things to stay active and have fun. Poker is just one of them. You know, I read a lot. That's another thing. I think that's important, actually. Exercise, obviously, and diet are important, but you know, I can't really exercise, unfortunately, because my back is so messed up from the cancer. But having other interests, you know, is important. Perspective puts it in perspective. You know, it's just a game, right? I have a friend who's a better poker player than I, you know, and we meet and we talk and we have fun, you know. Let's see what this guy does. He should come in big here. Is this my guy? Is he going to come in big here? This is the guy who uses big sizes when he has a good hand. Yeah, I think that's an easy fold. just, obviously set mining there. It doesn't cost a lot to get in. If you make your set, you make a big pot. If you don't, you just fold. Especially on that board. I mean, there are certainly boards where I could just go bluff crazy in that situation, but that's not one of them. And I would say, I don't know if anyone else has this experience, but I would say that at least 66% of my winnings come from bluffing. And right? I think that's probably close. Could even be more, but I don't think so. I think it's about 66%. Especially if you include blind stealing. So yeah. And this is a great session. I feel really good. About thinking about what I'm doing. That's the key, right? Even if you lose, if you're thoughtful and making decisions based on what you perceive to be the highest EV, even if it's wrong, it's a learning opportunity. And yeah, I think this is long enough for this video. I'll get out here next big blind. Very happy making, 30% of $50, $15, right? Isn't that what that is? I think so. Yeah, obviously. Yeah. Excuse me. That's a good session. That's a really good session. We should be so lucky to average 30 big blinds per session. My average is high, but it's not that high. I have a good winning average, but not that good. And it can be done, right? Anyone can do it. I'm no genius. I'm just, like I said, I have enough humility to study every day and try and get better and not be too worked up when I make a mistake. And patience, enough patience not to get myself in bad situations or chase losses. Borderline, really borderline. Oh, I'm going to do what Pete told me to do. I'm going to play it. See what happens. Yeah. Love that. Love that. Okay, this is similar, but I think clear open for me. 9-7 suited from the cutoff. Under these circumstances, kind of a weak table. Nobody really 3-betting that much, except for me and occasionally seat number 3 getting in there, but only when he has a really good hand. So yeah, I feel good. Yeah, have fun. That's key too. Lower the anxiety. If you're playing well, that's fun. Even if you're not making money that day, you will. If you're being thoughtful, trying to play the highest EV play in any given situation, be willing to say, oh, I had that completely backwards. That's happened to me so many times, where I thought something was something and it turned out to be the opposite of that thing. Okay. All right, thanks for joining me on this little journey. If you joined me on this little journey, and I'll see you another time.